I'm Fuchsia.
And I'm Jamie.
And
we are
that
thing
called inclusion. Now, you will have to bear with us. We are very new to the podcasting world, but we wanted to bring you a little something special. Now, we are both in the recruitment world and we are both disabled. So today, for our very first episode, I just wanted us to introduce ourselves and explain our mission. So I think I'll go first. Jamie, what do you think?
Oh, of course, ladies first.
So I'm Fuchsia and I am a disability consultant specialist for AMS, a recruitment agency. I work with our clients to support disabled candidates going through the recruitment process. Jamie, what do you do?
What don't I do is more the question. So I am a sourcer. Now, a sourcer is essentially somebody within recruitment who works with candidates through the recruitment process. And essentially, as well as finding people for their dream jobs, I also am the Disability Global Lead for AMS. So supporting our employee resource group, which is actually how me and you met. So yeah, I'm a sorcerer/sourcer.
So, as I just said, we are both disabled. So I am a wheelchair user, autistic, dyslexic hybrid, and that's my superpower. Jamie, what about you?
My superpower is I am visually impaired, registered blind. So it is a non-visible disability until you see me use my phone, and then it's very visible, or walking into things, then it's even more visible. So just don't wave across the room, shout my name. Hi, Jamie, it's...
It's interesting, isn't it, when people do things like that, because we don't look disabled. If I'm out of my wheelchair, I just look perfectly normal, like everybody else. And unless, of course, you're using visual aids, you just look like everyone else. So going off of the back of that, when did you find out that you were disabled, or have you always known?
I've always been disabled. Like, I was born with visual impairment. Of course, when you're a baby, it's hard to kind of say, what can you see in this chart? Because that's the eye test, isn't it? So for me, it was more my mum picked up on it. She noticed I wasn't really hand-eye coordination, can't speak, wasn't there. So I think she noticed it. And then through a series of tests, it came to be that I had the same medical condition that my uncles have, and it runs in my family, and that is ocular albinism with nystagmus, or the non-scientific way is my eyes like to go for little disco walks or disco party naps, and as well as that it also leaves me very tired at times from using technology. But what about you? Were you born with yours, or did you go shopping for yours? What way did you choose yours?
Well, we always say that I like collecting my disabilities like Pokemon cards, don't we? So especially when we're in our ERG group. So I was born with my condition that's kind of essentially put me in a wheelchair. But we didn't know what it was until I was about the age of 30. They had a clue about the age of 26, but they weren't too sure. So what I have is EDS, so that's Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a connective tissue disorder. So all my life, I've had problems with my bowels, my heart, my lungs, my joints. I was actually born with dislocated hips, which is quite rare. So I was not in a cast, because back then in the 80s, they didn't really cast people. I was in this thing called a frog splint. So if you could imagine, I just looked like a frog. So my legs were sticking out and I had to wear this thing 24/7. So it wasn't a great time for my parents. And it also caused me then to not be able to eat or drink properly because my bowels were rejecting things that I was eating. But I haven't had any operations or anything. I was just controlled by diet. But back in the 80s, they didn't know what it was. So they just put it down to just being a sickly baby. At the age of 6 months, I got the measles, and that caused me to have hearing loss, asthma, and then they now realized eyesight problems. So I have to wear corrective lenses, and I do struggle to focus sometimes, even with those. But that could be down to the measles. And then I've got dyslexia and autism. So I've always known that I've had dyslexia. I can't read or write. So that was obviously the biggest giveaway of having dyslexia. But I didn't find out about my autism again until I was 35, when I got retested for my dyslexia so that I could get assistive technology at work. So it's been a bit of a roller coaster since hitting 30. I seem to have just broken out into the disabled world. So it's been interesting for me. It's a very different world from having an invisible disability to having a very visible disability, being a wheelchair user.
And I think as well, like we talk about what way were you born with disability or you acquired, but what age do you think you were when you kind of felt like you felt different? You knew you weren't the same as everybody else?
Oh goodness, definitely primary school, when everyone was reading, like we had like little books in colours, and you were either like green level or red level or orange level, or I think orange level was like just going into secondary school. So yeah, year 9. So for our American friends, that's when you're about 9-10 years old. It's not year 9, it's year 6, isn't it? Year 9 secondary school. Oh my god, now I'm getting myself confused. But definitely when I was about 5, everyone started learning the alphabet and writing it. Now I could say it verbally if I repeat it. I can't say it in my head right now and I get jumbled up, but you know, repetitive thing, I could get it, but I couldn't write it at all. It was just really awkward. I felt like really stupid. I really did.
I think the alphabet, it's funny that for me the alphabet's a trigger almost, because like as I said earlier, do you kind of get what is wrong with your eyesight? Is do this eye test and let us look in your eyes with this big bright light that's going to leave you blind anyway, but we're going to do it because it's going to help you, and then we're going to poison your eyes with eye drops after, so you continuously blink for hours. So those little tests, I can't remember the actual name from those little eye tests, and then you're talking about not being able to actually see it either, or being able to write it. You know, it's funny that those little loops connect us, but I guess that feeling for me, it kind of started around the same age. I was in primary school, and I can remember having a classroom assistant who came in every couple of hours a day, usually in the afternoon. Her name was Bernie. She was honestly a wee godsend. She used to come in with Pikachu cakes, talking to Pokemon. I know you collect disabilities. You got to catch them all. But with myself, I can remember, like if she wasn't there, I would go up to the blackboard and people would shout at me, like the kids in the class. I'm like, this is maybe P6, P7. I'm not going to try to do a translation, but I was young. I was definitely around 7 or 8. And kids were, like, told me off for being in front of them. And I can remember one instance where I went home with this book, and my sister, it's called Sylvia, and I had spelled Sylvia as Sliver, I think it was. I had spelled Sliver as Sylvia. So I had, and I can remember my mum being like, what's going on here? Like, how's the school not picking this up? And how were you supported when you were in school? How did you get that support?
So for me, I was actually put in what they would call back then special education. I know it's still called the same, but it's slightly different connotation. So for me in primary school, I was taken out of the mainstream class and I was put into a porter cabin with 2 support teachers who would just let me play puzzles. So I wasn't actually taught anything. They thought I was unteachable. They literally thought that there was something deeply, deeply wrong with me. And because I was also quite disruptive in class, because obviously I was so bored. I had great verbal reasoning skills, even at a 5-year-old. I could talk and talk and talk and talk. So they considered me a troubled child because I was so bored. And yeah, all I did was play with puzzles. And there's this one particular puzzle that sticks in my head, and it's an actual puzzle that they use to test for dyslexia. And it's a little brown box with squares in it. You're going to love this because you wouldn't be able to see it at all. And on these squares, it's kind of printed. So like half the square could be painted in red. And what you're meant to do is you're meant to join up these little white blocks with these red bits of painting on to make things like houses or triangles or pyramids. So of course, day in, day out, that's all I did for hours on end. And I had building blocks and I had Lego. And that was it. They didn't teach me to read, nothing. So it was a trying time. And I think the thing that sticks in my head the most, without going like too much into my schooling, is when I was in military school. So I lived in Cyprus when I was between the ages of 6 and 8, I believe, something around that. So I was in military school and we had to do spelling tests. Now, of course, I couldn't read or write. So I used to take, my goodness, this is Fuchsia's like forward thinking here. I used to take the crib sheet that had the words on it for me to remember, to test how to spell. I used to put it under my thigh, and every time the teacher's back was turned, pull out the piece of paper from under my thigh and then copy what it was. Me being the evil genius that I am, thinking, oh, I'm going to get away with this. No, I got a ruler to the back of the head more times than I could care to count because I was caught cheating in my spelling exams.
Oh, I never would have been able to get away with it. I would have been getting caught. I would have been getting whacked twice as hard as you probably, because I'd be doing it blatantly in front of somebody. And like, that's what I used to get told off for in school was, well, I'm speaking to you, or even today as adults, I'm speaking to you. And it's like, I can't see who is speaking to me. And you're almost looking around in panic. And the more they shout at me, I kind of get more overwhelmed. But with yourself then, so we kind of touched this. You've lived in Cyprus, you've travelled around. I've always just been based in Northern Ireland, sunny Belfast. Where are you based permanently now then? So where do you reside?
So I am in Sussex, and I technically should be working out of London. But I've always worked from home with my job. I think that's the great thing about working for the company that we do work for, is that we have that flexible working conditions, and not just because of our disabilities. It's across the board, isn't it, with AMS? So we're very, very lucky. But yes, I live in a tiny village in the middle of Sussex.
Brilliant. Well, I was going to say, let's not give the exact location. Otherwise, we'll have people appear at your door, or we'll have presents sent to you. You can send presents to me.
Want to pay off my mortgage, that would be lovely. But yeah. Guys, as you can tell, this is not a scripted podcast, and we do not want it to be. We want this to be a conversation, like we're sitting in your lounge talking with you and discussing all things inclusion. So hopefully that's not too off-putting that we're scripting it like this. But going off the back of where we live and who we work for, Jamie.
Yes.
What was your very first experience of working as a disabled person, and did you disclose that you had a disability?
No, oh my God, no. I had such a wee roller coaster, and I'm not diving into too much, but obviously I knew I was disabled quite young. My mum was my absolute warrior, got me all the support in school, got me into a specialist school for kids with visual impairments and audio impairments. Now, with that there, I was in that school, but I was traveling really far. So I was like, I want my independence. I don't want this. I want to be the same as my friends. So silly Jamie, naive Jamie, left supported education and went into mainstream education. Like, I did leave school with my A levels in art, but with my disability, it was, my first job was working in Asda. You don't really say, oh, I can't see to stop the shelf, or I can't see to use a till, because you're replaceable in retail. And like, when you're Christmas time and you're 17 and you're already saying, I can't work this day because my exams, they don't care. So they don't. So I kept it to myself, and I'm not going to lie, Asda, I remember being on the tills, and I'm pretty sure there was times that I panicked putting things through. And if you were a customer of mine, you definitely got overcharged or undercharged, because I could not see that thing ringing through. And so apologies. Blind moment, but it's panic, because how do you say to somebody, I can't, if something doesn't scan through and it's a barcode, do you say to the person who is maybe older in front of you, or maybe they have a visual impairment you don't know about, and do you turn around and say, can you read this to me? Because you don't always get the help you want, and sometimes you get a smart ass answer, and I don't want that either. Do you know what I mean? So retail was my first job, so it was a no go. But do you know what? I wouldn't change it, because, like you said, it was after your 30s, you kind of found that, not independent, but you kind of got more comfortable with disability, as being able to articulate it and kind of getting to the bottom of it. And I'm the same. I've only recently turned 30, about, I don't know when, 2 or 3 years ago. But with my confidence, I only found mine recently too. And I think it's like without those experiences, I probably wouldn't be as passionate as I am today about trying to fix these barriers that do present themselves, because there's a lot of them. What about you? Like, what was your first barriers getting into employment?
Well, I started working quite young, actually. I used to paint model figures for a company called Tradition, and they actually used to make model figures for like film and movies, and and military things. A bit like Warcraft, but for the fancy pants that do the polo. You know those people? So I used to paint those as a kid to help my mom out, and I used to get paid for it. And then I became a cleaner for an optician's, of all places. It was mainly because I got discount off of my glasses, so I didn't have to wear the NHS glasses as a kid. But my first, I guess, official tax-paying job was when I was 18. I just left college. I just left drama school. I was a bit stuck for what to do because I wasn't too sure if I wanted to go to university. I had applied it. There you go. There's my dyslexia. What the? What is that? Applied? I had applied for several drama schools like Lambda and RADA, and although I'd been shortlisted, I hadn't got in. And then I realised how much it was going to cost me, and I was like, "Do I really want £32,000 of debt at 22? Not really." So I went to go and work for Thomas Cook. Now I thought, right, I'll be in the call centre, I'll be answering the phones, I'll be booking people's holidays. I can spell Aruba. Right? No, I can't spell Aruba. But what actually happened was, after 1 week of training, I was put on, back then, paper tickets, because we didn't have digital tickets. We had paper tickets, and they looked like a checkbook, and they were the length of a checkbook, if anyone remembers what a checkbook looks like. And my job was to go through the carbon copies to make sure that the numbers matched with the numbers on the screen with the names of the passengers. Could you imagine a worse job for someone who can't read or write?
I was going to say, it would just be guessing. It's like, guess who?
I was terrible. I think I lasted about 2 weeks, and I spent most of my job saying, "I'm sorry, I need the loo," and having a crafty fag in the toilet.
Back in the days you could smoke inside.
Back in the days when you could smoke inside, yeah. And then after that, I went straight into middle management with Next. Don't know how that happened. Again, probably the gift of the gab. But it was great because stock taking, they had like these little machines that you could scan the barcode, and it would tell you exactly how many of each item you had in store. And if you were running too low, you would just up it up, and it would send a thing to the warehouse, and woo, amazingly, you get clothes the next day. So I didn't have to type anything. It was just all pressing buttons. And yeah. I lasted for quite a while, but I didn't really tell anyone that I had dyslexia. And I did make the mistake of doing it when I moved to a new branch just down here in Sussex, where I was made a floor manager. And I made the mistake of telling my boss that I had dyslexia. And within 3 weeks, I was being brought up on disciplinaries.
You know, it's sad to hear that you say mistake. It was a mistake to tell somebody. Yeah. Because I've had experiences where I've told people about my disability, and it's not went well for me. And like this is how like far back this triggers you. Like these things root into you. I was maybe like, I think I was like 15, 16, back when I was straight. And there was this girl, and I can remember it was, you know, that around that time, all your friends have got girlfriends or boyfriends, and you're all going to like the teenage disco, and you think you're class drinking this bottle of vodka from your parents. So, you know, at that age, I was trying to impress this girl, and I can remember telling her, we went for this walk, and it was so cute because obviously I don't drive, so I didn't. And we were walking around, and I told her about eyesight, and I was just like, it's really bad, like I can't drive. And she's like, will you ever drive? And I was like, no. And she stopped texting me and told me she wasn't, she stopped texting me, so she did for like a week. And then when I seen her, she told me she wasn't interested. And it's like, okay, wow, okay. So that was like my first real sense of rejected because of your eyesight. But I made a mistake then too. Well, I would have made a mistake with her as well, obviously, because I'm gay now. But, you know, it's sad that you see things like that as a mistake. And I know I kind of made light of that situation, but I think that when you hear the word mistake, and I should have disclosed who I am, because this is part of you. You know, we can't take this away. And for years, I spent covering it up, as you have. But when you hear the word mistake, now when you hear that, does it kind of think, what did I do? Or do you see it as I needed to go through that?
I think I did need to go through it, because then after that moment, I just disclosed it everywhere. Didn't care who it was. It could be Bob down the pub. I was telling everyone that I was dyslexic, because I thought, why am I hiding who I am? I had to hide at the time that I was gay for many different reasons. So I was already hiding a part of who I was anyway. So I thought, well, I can't read or write. This is getting really boring now. People keep handing me pieces of paper and tins and packets and books, and I'm just sitting here going, I've had enough. You know, I was 19 and I'd had enough. I really, really had.
It's like you have to come out twice. It's like you come out for being, oh, I'm gay, and then it's like, oh, by the way, I'm disabled. And I'm going to tell you a secret. I didn't know what was worse when I was younger. I didn't know it was worse to tell people I was gay, because I was from a real rural town in Northern Ireland, and not everybody is accepting, as my family was, thankfully. But, you know, how do you tell people, oh, can you help me? Oh, by the way, I'm also gay. You know, like, and I know you don't have to walk around disclosing this, but we shouldn't also have to hide it. Like, if I want to wear my disability or my rainbow as a badge of honor, I will do it, and I will look fabulous doing it.
And that is definitely going to have to be a podcast for another time. I think, Jamie, though, we have come to the end, because we don't want to give away all our trade secrets in one go. But is there anything that you want to share? Because we thought we would have inclusive rant of the week or non-inclusive rant of the week. So what was yours this week?
So let's pick one. So I'm going to narrow it down to one. My non-inclusive rant this week is InMail. So anyone who uses the platform LinkedIn, if you're not on it, get on it, because if you're somebody looking at a job, us sources will find you on there. But one thing, I'm very vocal about my disability. I have hashtags on my LinkedIn. When you receive InMail from people saying, oh, I've got this job for you, and it's such a great promising job, and you're like, okay, I'm not actually on the market, but I'm going to look at your job specification anyway, because I'm nosy and I want that market insight. But when you open a document and it's tiny font and there's no spacing and there's no different, there's nothing to make it like different. And when you put it through your screen reader and it reads like a story, like it's like a page from a Harry Potter, or a chapter from a Harry Potter novel, I should say, make your stuff accessible. You know, we may be a small percentage, 1 in 5 people, but that's still 1 in 5, like, designed for that 1%. So if you're going to send me an InMail, or anybody, think, how can I make this easier to read and cut out the shit, because we don't need this waffling stuff. And go look at my profile, because if you see I have a visual impairment, adjust that, because I would do the same for you.
Yes.
Being inclusive.
Exactly. Being inclusive, that's so important, isn't it? And for me, mine was not having a ramp to get into a building this week. And it's only a Monday. We have filmed this on a Monday, and I couldn't get into a building today because it didn't have a ramp, and I was there for a very, very important meeting. So that was very embarrassing for the professional that I was there to meet. So it's just the small, simple things. Like you say, you know, build for the 5%. I can't remember how many we are in the world now.
1 in 5.
1 in 5, yeah. So just build ramps. Ramps are easier to look after than steps. They're far prettier than steps. Just build ramps everywhere, people. But anyway, we better go before we rant any further. So I have been your co-host, Fuchsia.
And I'm Jamie, and check us out on Twitter and our website. If you want to get in touch, please do get in touch on any platform there at info@thatthingcalledclusion.com. Can you tell that I need a drink of water?
You need a drink of water. I need a cup of tea. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, everyone. We'll catch you soon.
Bye.
Bye.